What's up, everyone? Online prep coach Alex Cooker here with PepCoach.com with a video from an idea I had literally 35 seconds ago. Finished up recording a different seminar. I thought, I don't have a video out there on stacking, and not just stacking like supplements or peptides, but also therapies and modalities. So I thought this would be a pretty cool. Again, I have no direction where I'm going to go with this, no idea. But I thought it'd be a cool idea because there's some things I think that can help you potentiate what you're doing already. So let's start with the most basic thing. So I just did a podcast with the Health Revival Show. So that was with Liz and Becca, two amazing girls, love them to death so much, mentoring students of mine. And we talked about pairing MOTS-C with grounding. So we're going to look at potentiating things. First, we're looking at MOTS-C done before your grounding work. So again, this is going to be stack one, okay? Whenever we have our MOTS-C before grounding, why would we do this? Well, again, look at what MOTS-C has to offer. MOTS-C really is the biggest player on driving up what we call mitochondrial communication, right? So this is how mitochondria will talk to each other. So of all the mitochondrial peptides out there, MOTS-C is the only one that does this. Technically, if you are improving mitochondrial health in any way, it's going to improve how they actually communicate and crosstalk, but this crosses and causes direct mitonuclear communication, which is really cool and novel. So what we are trying to do is when we go outside and ground, we're getting that electron donation, we're getting static off the body. What we're doing from there is also getting that photonic exchange from the sun. So we're having electrons, photons, we're having everything. We're having pulse electromagnetic fields because that's what's actually happening when we're grounding. Grounding literally combines all the therapies we're trying to mimic indoors, right? But outside. So if we are improving everything from every single aspect, getting different positive kinds of coherent EMFs from the earth, from the sun, from our environment around us, it makes sense that if mitochondria and cells are receiving that information, they need to be able to communicate. So that's where we're getting all these cool things, like I said, from more coherent electromagnetic fields to the actual electron exchange to the photonic exchange to everything, right? So it makes sense why we want to pair MOTS-C before we do our grounding work. So that's going to be one. And I'll change color every other one so we kind of can see them clearly. Now I'll go over here. We'll go to two, because we're going to piggyback off of that one. We're going to go with grounding before your pulsed electromagnetic field work. So what did I just say about grounding? Grounding does a good job of having the positive exchange of electrons, having the coherent EMFs, having the photonic exchange, and getting static off. So getting noise off of the actual line and off the signal. So if we are actually pulling down on that static, which is also funny because, again, that's how bees actually pollinate, through static electricity. So not good or bad, just situational. We can pull off noise on the line and then amplify the signal and get more healing out of our pulse electromagnetic fields. So the PEMF-based technologies, what we're looking at here is really driving, like we talked about, that magnetoporation, that process of getting basically bad endotoxins and pathogens out of the cell, fortifying the actual cell membrane structure. Because again, it's stacked polar lipid, so hydrophilic, lipophilic end, it's pushing those electrons back and forth. This is where the magnetism comes in to improve our own electromagnetic fields and to heal cells and heal mitochondria. So we're going to say, because it's doing so many things, we're doing cells and mitochondria, which is pretty perfect. So stack one, MOTS-C, then grounding. Stack two would be grounding, then PEMF. And I'm trying to build off of this, right? So now what could we do? We could go from PEMF into something else. And I will switch to black for this one. Oop. We could go from PEMF into molecular hydrogen, right? And technically you could do that beforehand as well, but in this scenario, I'm just laying it out in this way. There's a bunch of different ways you can move these things around, but in this scenario, if you were maybe doing one full protocol, right? MOTS-C before grounding, then grounding into PEMF, then PEMF into hydrogen. We talked about the PEMF, what we're doing from an overall cell and mitochondrial aspect to drive communication, to drive healing, to fix everything from a magnetic and electrical based aspect. Again, these are more of the positive waveforms that we need to be more coherent. So we have coherence, right? Our cells are now charged. They're now healthy. I'm assuming at this point you're going to continue the rest of your day. So why don't we go ahead and back that up with some actual flushing of the stomach and the liver? That would be more of a drinkable hydrogen. And again, we're doing that mainly for the gut and the liver. And I see it at this point because in the liver, there's a lot of protein folding that goes on, positive or negative. So you can fold or misfold proteins, then dispose over globally. So after you improve communication of mitochondria, you then push the grounding electron donation. You then take the grounding into the PEMF work to improve cell mitochondrial communication, action, healing, cellular coherence. Now that your cells and mitochondria are healed, let's go ahead and begin the rest of our day. But you need to go ahead and make sure the gut and the liver are in a good position to receive upcoming nutrients. Because right now, mitochondria and cells are ready, but sometimes the gut's not. And again, the PEMF work's going to take care of a lot of that. But with everything, it's not just therapies, it's not just modalities, it's not just supplements. There's training, there's nutrition, there's sleep, there's everything. So right out of the gate, there is one way you can set up a couple different things. That's actually, I didn't plan on doing it like that, but you could do something like MOTC to grounding to PEMF to H2, so to more hydrogen therapies. We will go back to, actually, I got to switch now. I'll do black down there. So now if we go down here and we can pick, we'll go a different route, right? We won't keep doing the stack on stack on stack on stack because that'll get a little bit ridiculous. Let's do some basic ones, things we've talked about beforehand, but I don't think I really have a video on stacking. We will do the basics of growth hormone plus growth hormone peptides. Now for this, I'm not going to write anything under it because we've already talked about this so many times. Essentially what we're looking at here is taking our growth hormone peptides, ideally about 60 to 90 minutes before your exogenous growth hormone. So I tell people ideally in a before bed scenario, you're going into your bedroom, you are first taking your growth hormone releasing hormones and peptides, usually combining them, and then doing your normal nighttime routine. Maybe it'll be 30, 60, 90 minutes. First pass the liver, then go ahead and take your actual growth hormone. This is sensitizing growth hormone related receptors. So you're going to make it more receptive. So the binding of your 1 IU of growth hormone works like 2 IUs. So you're improving the efficiency of how ligand comes in and binds, docks, and sends and transmits its chemical signal. So we know that growth hormones and growth hormone peptides overall, we understand that. That's a cool pairing. We know that something like if we have our HRT, males and females, and injectable carnitine. Now for females, about a minimum of 125 milligrams, males about 250 milligrams. What we're doing here is improving androgen receptor binding affinity and constant to improve how our hormones, mainly testosterone, but all ligands, will bind to their receptors, right? So same thing with growth hormone, but now we're looking at androgen receptors and androgen responsive elements and things of that nature. We also have heat shock proteins that'll come in and kick things off before the whole dimer process begins, translocation of the nucleus, genomic action. So what drives that super well? BPC157. I think it's one of the few things out there that can drive that heat shock protein change to at least a noticeable degree. So we have some growth hormone. We have some growth hormone related peptides. I forgot to change the color, whatever. What are some other stacks that we can do? Let's think about the liver, right? The liver, and this kind of applies to a lot of stacking for multiple different things. But if we're looking at stacking for a liver specifically, it could be something like our bioregulator of the Svet norm plus something like TUDCA and ergothioneine. So the Svet norm as the bioregulator comes into hepatic tissue, turns on epigenetic expression. The TUDCA comes in, handles more of like the protein folding and stops the misfolding of hepatocytes. Then we have something like ergothioneine, which drives up that BCL2 adenovirus E1B19 kilodalton interacting protein 3, which goes ahead and allows mitochondria, specifically in hepatocytes, to heal themselves. It does that globally too, but ergothioneine compared with TUDCA has a really good liver-based detoxing effect. And you can apply that for multiple other things, right? Because from there, spent norm, then go down the list of different organ systems. Look at cardiac tissue, right? We'll change this up a little bit, but in cardiac tissue, I guess I can do a different one, right? In cardiac tissue, we have something like, if we go with the bioregulator of Coley-Hart, I always forget how to spell that, so I'm putting the dot there, Coley-Hart, and then we're going to have something like MOT-C, and we're going to go with telmisartan. Coley-Hart, same kind of thing. Bioregulator comes in, turns on epigenetic expression. MOT-C will come in and drive more ventricular remodeling and pulling down of fibrosis in the heart. And then something like telmisartan goes more on like the peroxisome proliferate active receptor gamma cascade to stop negative hypertrophy of the heart, to drive positive hypertrophy of the heart, and to pull down fibrosis, and really manage how the cardiac tissue fluxes and chelates ions, which carnitine also does as well. So you could throw carnitine onto there. But there's another little good stack, that you can do together to potentiate the effects for your actual cardiac healing. Let's take a step back from the organs. Let's look at some of the traditional performance drivers, neurological, and we can do some biological stuff too. A really good combination. We're going to go in the nootropic world, right? Is Neuropept plus Celank plus Cmax. So how do these potentiate each other? First of all, we have more of the BDNF driver and more of the modulation of anxiolytic aspect from the Celank. We have more of the dopaminergic and serotonergic changes from the Cmax, and then we have more of the pulling down on glutamate levels with the improvements to the motor cortex and the overall learning, speech, arousal curve process with the Neuropept. So right out of the gates, and by the way, this is what I took today before I record all my videos, this combination drives linguistics, fluidity, memory recall, and it keeps you in that very low, calm parasympathetic state. So you can recall things easier, not having, the flushing of right ears or anything like that, which I get, by the way, when I get excited, it happens. But that's a very good stack that will all potentiate each other. And that's the whole point where we're potentiating and making these stacks. One is meant to make the other work better. So this 1 + 1 + 1 = 3 is actually 1 + 1 + 1 = 6, because each of them are making up a different bit of neurochemistry. Now we'll go ahead and we'll go with myological. If we go with something like the good old diisopropylamine dichloroacetate plus ATP, that is right out of the gates an amazing stack. And because of that, we're also going to add in something like a urolithin A. So in this world, we are first driving ATP production with our ATP, obviously, we're taking it straight, so straight energy. We're then pulling off pyruvate dehydrogenase kinase 4 to stop the pyruvate, limiting the whole conversion process over to acetyl-CoA, over to ATP. And then we're backing that up with recycling damaged mitochondria and pushing mitochondrial biogenesis to the next level. As you are driving energetics to this level, to this extent with DADHA and ATP, mitochondrial functionality and damaging of mitochondria because you overspin, generally from an ATP aspect, will cause you to need something like urolithin A to do the cleanup work. Because if you have those complexes going and spinning off a bunch of ATP, they will easily jack up the millivoltage potential of your mitochondria pretty high, and then that can cause the issues of kind of making misformed, dysfunctional mitochondria and things of that nature. So this is 9 things, right? Just basic stacks, different ways to combine and pair things in terms of making one potentiate the other. Now, let's keep going. Again, I had no intention of planning this or recording this, right? Let's go with sleep. Sleep's cool one. Go with blue over here. What's that, number 10? So from a sleep aspect, I love the good old epitalin, low dose before bed. Epitalin is going to be the bigger player on normalizing circadian cascades. This might also have to be taken upon waking depending on the individual, but no matter what, it will normalize sleep architecture before bed. Usually if the epitalin is in place, then we need something more on like the quantum and we'll say like the coherent electromagnetic field side of things. This could be something like a quantum block or the blue shield or something along those lines. And then from there, we have the grounding aspect. Now, the grounding aspect is going to be something more like the actual grounding sheets, so you can get more electron donation all night. There's a lot of debate, a lot of controversy about the grounding. So a couple things. I don't like excessively grounding. We're not trying to live in a Faraday cage. We're trying to get positive cosmic bits of radiation and different types of energy throughout the universe that we don't even know about yet. So I don't like going crazy with all this. But at the same time, I think having multiple areas of coverage can only benefit you. So on the grounding-based aspect, the reason why people get, and there's a lot of hate out there for grounding beds and pillowcases, is because of basically makes you into an antenna. You'll pick up more of those non-coherent EMFs from cell towers, satellites, and things like that. But if you kind of cover that with the coherent EMF stuff, with the blue shield, the Lila quantum, the Aries, that knocks out that. So I don't see the antenna problem there. You could make the argument that the dirty electricity coming into the house is then being fed through you into that machine. So you could fix that one of two ways. Get the dirty electricity blocker for the outlet or for your entire house. And you can also go ahead and just take that and just stick it outside in the ground, 4 feet deep, copper wire, come inside the house, hook it up and everything, and then you're covered there. So as long as you have those covered, this to me is one of the best combinations to redrive circadian sleep architecture while making sure that there's not an excess amount of non-coherent EMFs that are jacking up those voltage-gated sodium channels that are making you feel sympathetic at night. And then we're also getting pulling down more parasympathetic, more anti-inflammatory, and all of the management of oxidation effects by driving more grounding. So sleeping, that's a pretty good combination to put things in the right direction. I think we're going to end it there on those 10 things. Again, we can keep going on and on about different ways to stack things, but I want to give an overall, because we have a lot of new people on this group, right? I want to give an overall broad perspective on thinking different ways to stack things. And I did this specific because what do we have up here, right? We don't just have a peptide. We have an action of going outside and grounding. We have machinery and equipment for PEMF, for the EMF mitigation, for grounding, right? We have the hormones. We have these other kinds of molecules, which are technically in the small molecule world, but some aren't. I really don't care about the semantics of it, but we have a little bit of everything in the over-the-counter supplements, in the bioregulators, and it gives a broad perspective that I hope can teach. I want it to be taught that we are stacking everything. It's not just stacking peptides or stacking hormones or stacking therapies. It's doing a peptide with a hormone, with a supplement, with a therapy. To me, that's where you get the most bang for your buck, and that's where these things really shine and thrive. If you have specific stacks you would like to see, go ahead, comment down below. I'll make its own video, or I'll even just post on the comments and make sure that we have stacks for everything. And maybe I should make a whole guide. I know people wanted me to do like a PDF ebook for a while on different stackings and things like that, which maybe I could do, because that would be cool. I would have to leave out dosages and everything, obviously, because that'd be way too easily misinterpreted, right? But the concept of all of these is to get the 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, but equals 4 or 6 or whatever arbitrary greater number, right? So, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out thepeptides.com. See you next time.